Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2001 comedy film Rat Race. Now, this is one of those movies that I've always enjoyed. I would say it's one of my favorite comedies from the 2000s. I know that in a lot of ways it is a take on Mad World, which a lot of people feel is a much superior movie, but I I've always found this to be a really enjoyable and genuinely hilarious comedy. And if anything, I think it's a little underrated. It did decent box office when it came out, but it got pretty mixed reviews. But this is one of those movies that, for me personally, is always a blast. It's always something that puts a smile on my face, makes me laugh out loud numerous times. And before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on Rat Race, I would like to give a shout out yet again to Ryan for requesting this review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The link to all three is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, Rat Race is directed by Jerry Zucker, and he's known for being one of the directors of Airplane and Top Secret and other films like Ghost and Ruthless People. And prior to this, he did First Night, which I really wasn't that big of a fan of. But this was, in my opinion, a good send off for Zucker, because this is the kind of movie that he's better suited at when it comes to directing. This is a very zany movie, and the direction really reflects that. Very zany, very over the top, very comic book in a lot of ways. More like comic strip, not necessarily comic book, like the kind of a slapsticky stuff that you would see in a comic strip in the newspaper. You know, that kind of vibe, almost a Looney Tunes kind of thing at points as well. And the direction is just really well suited for all of those things in terms of how the shots are framed, in terms of how he utilizes the camera angles and pans and zooms and other camera techniques to really emphasize the broad comedy and the slapstick and the physical comedy of things. And it just makes the movie go at a really quick pace and allows the movie to have a very consistent amount of kinetic energy throughout it. And I definitely do feel that the movie wouldn't be as fun if it was directed by somebody else, because Zucker was just really great at doing movies that had this madcap energy to them. And he was still one of the better directors at the time when it comes to directing movies like this. And it really paid off, in my opinion. The film is written by Andy Breckman, and it's inspired by the 1963 film It's a Mad World. But I don't really agree with people who say that it's just a straight up ripoff. It's inspired by it for sure. They have similar plots involving a group of people trying to find some money in a race across country. But that's really about it. Other than that, they could not be any more different when it comes to the style of comedy, when it comes to the tone, when it comes to the way that things ultimately unfold, when it comes to the finale. So I don't really agree with the critics who say that it's just a poor man's mad, mad world. I think it stands pretty effectively and pretty well on its own, despite it having a similar plot. This is an ensemble film, which has like a wide array of characters who are trying to get to Silver City from Las Vegas to get to a storage locker that contains a duffel bag filled with $2 million in cash. So, because of the fact that there's so many characters, there really isn't much when it comes to character development except for like bare minimum stuff. And I'm okay with that because this is a comedy. I don't need to know uh the backstory or have that much of a extended series of conversations with some of these characters or know them on a deeper level. That's not necessary. One of the big selling points of this movie is how fast paced the story is, and the film is overall. As soon as the race starts, it's just nonstop. It's nonstop madcap zaniness and fun. And I think if you had moments where it paused to try to uh, establish some subplots or some additional drama, I think that really would have hurt it in the end. And I do still feel that it has enough moments with this script where the writer finds a way to still make you invested in these different characters and root for certain characters and pick your favorite, so to speak. You know, pick the one that you want to see win over, the rest. And there's a good variety of different personalities as well. They're not just more of the same, repeated ad nauseum. Like, you have a lot of different personalities with their own different quirks, and I appreciate that. It starts out essentially introducing you to Nick, who is Breckin Meyer's character, and his introduction is hilarious because he's going up to check out of his hotel, and the hotel clerk is talking about all these different porno videos that he rented, and he's like, "I didn't do that." It's like, "Are you sure? Are you sure you didn't rent all these porn videos, sir?" And then just lists off all the names of the pornos. I thought this was rated R because of stuff like that, but no, it's a PG-13 comedy, and it really toes the line when it comes to its comedy and its humor. And I definitely have to give Breckman a lot of credit because it's his script, and so a lot of that is from him. And you also have various other characters who were introduced right in the beginning as well, like Vera and her daughter Meryl, who she is meeting for the first time after all these years. You have this narcoleptic Italian tourist from Naples called Enrico. You have this woman named Tracy, who's a helicopter pilot, who Nick meets, uh, I think like halfway or not necessarily halfway, like about 30 minutes into the movie, at a point when Nick is thinking about not even going through with the race, but then he meets her, finds out that she has a helicopter and she's a pilot, and she's going to be heading down close to Silver City, so he sees the opportunity then to maybe go get the money, and uh, they wind up teaming up. You have Owen Templeton, who is a football referee who is infamous for a bad call in overtime when he completely screwed up and said that uh, the coin toss was one thing when it wasn't. And the fact that it was a Dallas team, that adds a little bit for me as a Cowboys fan. So I was like, oh, so he screwed over the Cowboys. And I know for some people they'd be like, yeah, Cowboys suck. Serves them right. I hate the Cowboys. But for me, I'm like, yeah, I would hate his guts too. Uh, so I don't know if I would go as far as Paul Rodriguez's cab driver character goes and leave him in the middle of the desert, but yeah, I definitely would have some words to say to this guy. That's for sure. You have Dwayne and his brother Blaine, and they are two scammers, really, and they are also a part of this race to try to find this money. You have Randy Pear, who is this tourist who's visiting Vegas with his family, and he's a total sneak, and he is absolutely reckless and doesn't seem to really care that much about his family in this movie. It's more of one of those things where in the scope of this story, he cares more about the money because he does not want to work at Home Depot. Um, and you have his family, you know, Bev, his wife, his kids, are Randy and Kimberly. You also have this attorney who works for the villain, Donald Sinclair, who is this Las Vegas billionaire and gambler who sets up this entire rat race. And you also have Wayne Knight's character, Zach Malozzi, who's a medical supply driver who comes into the story at some point later on. And you have a few other, you know, characters here and there, like Sean, who's Tracy's ex, who Tracy finds out that he's, well, he was actually her current boyfriend, but then she finds out that he's cheating on her, uh, and she decides to try to kill him with the helicopter. And you have a bunch of Lucille Ball cosplayers. You have Kathy Bates in a hilarious uncredited cameo as a squirrel seller. You have Gloria Allred who plays herself, and like I said, Paul Rodriguez, who plays Gus, this taxi driver, who's a Dallas fan, who is pissed at Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character. And we have Smash Mouth, too, who ultimately plays themselves in the concert at the end of the film. So the script plays out in a way that is very typical for these kind of movies, where you get a quick introduction to all these different characters, who they are, why they're in Vegas, and then they wind up winning these coins from a slot machine at the casino, and it tells them to turn them in because you've won something. And so what they've won is a entry in this rat race. And they wind up meeting in a room with Sinclair. And I love this script when it comes to the the dark comedy. It is honestly really hilarious because there's a lot of really dark, twisted, messed up comedy in this script. And that's honestly some of my favorite comedy is that kind of stuff. Like for instance, Sinclair initially talks to this whole group of people in this room and mentions about how they're going to be the ones to save humanity because he knows that there is I think like an asteroid coming, or the world is going to end soon and you're going to have to repopulate the planet. And then he's like, psych, no, sorry. I was just kidding. No, you're just here to try to race against each other to get $2 million in cash at this storage locker in Silver City. I think it's New Mexico. And you have this certain amount of time to get there. And whoever gets there first wins the money. You have all these different scenarios, all these different things that happen with these characters and their quest to try to find the money. And I really liked how they got into a lot of different types of shenanigans. Breckin, Meyer, and Amy Smart, Nick and Tracy, they have the whole thing with Tracy's a current boyfriend, and she just snaps in a hilarious fashion and tries to almost decapitate the guy with the helicopter. And you have Owen and how he winds up getting dumped in the desert by the pissed off Dallas fan, and he then winds up making his way across the desert, finds a gas station, sees a bus that's parked there, winds up knocking out the bus driver, taking his clothes, and then commandeers this bus, and it's full of I Love Lucy cosplayers. I Love Lucy fans who are dressed up for a I Love Lucy convention. And then it actually turns into like an I Love Lucy episode because of all of these shenanigans that ensue. The bathroom gets full of soap and overflows. All these different things happen one after another. The bus gets in as some kind of crash. While Gus is not Gus, Owen. Gus was the cab driver. Owen is trying to fix the tires that went flat, but the Lucy impersonators are getting in the way, and in typical Lucy fashion, they screw it up, and they all go ah, like it's fun stuff, and it's unique, and it's different, and it was all something that was inspired by research the writer did on his spare time. He was just reading some tabloids and then saw something about an I Love Lucy convention and then was like, that's a fun idea. Let me put that in my script. And you also have Dwayne and Blaine and them trying to sabotage the airport so nobody can leave in a plane to get to Silver City before they do. Uh, they try to make a copy of the key, but then the guy who makes the copy is like, "Hey, I'll just take the key myself and I'll go try to get the money." And he tries to steal a hot air balloon, and then Dwayne and Blaine then wind up getting caught up in all of it. Uh, you have Vera and Meryl, and they rent a car, and then they try to find a shortcut along the way, and they meet this lady who is selling squirrels, and they refuse to buy the squirrel for a pet. And then the squirrel lady gives them bad directions that leads them into essentially a death pit where they wind up going off a giant hill and then crash their car. And I love that, like, there's just a pile of cars and like skeletons because it's like a death pit. It's essentially a place where this squirrel lady, who's insane, has sent all these people to die if they don't buy a squirrel. And there's even like there's even signs that pop up when they're going down the hill. It says, "You should have bought a squirrel." Uh, it's twisted, but hilarious. And then it continues with this very politically incorrect bit with Meryl and Vera, where they wind up stealing a rocket car, and, and then they wind up getting out of the rocket car later after they've like broken the sound barrier, and then they get picked up by this bus full of, I think it's supposed to be like mentally challenged people or like the mentally ill, and they're all like stumbling around, and they look like they're the type of people that would be a part of this group that is on this bus trip. And so they're stumbling around and they're talking to the caretaker, and that one of the gals is all like, I came in on the rocket car. It was like, yeah, sure you did. All right, let's go. Let's go. Uh but speaking of messed up and just laugh out loud hilarious, the whole arc, the whole series of sequences involving Randy and his family are just the funniest in the entire movie, if you ask me, and in the script. Like, this writer was on his A game here. Randy, he winds up stopping when he and his family are barreling down the road in their minivan, and his daughter wants to go to this Barbie museum, and he's like, okay, fine, because he essentially gets strong armed into doing it by his wife. And it's a museum for a Nazi called Klaus Barbie, and it's so depraved and messed up. But it just goes even further. Like, it crosses even more lines. Like, you would think, okay, like, that in itself is really dark, but then it gets even darker, where now, because they did something to upset these Nazis, they wind up stealing a car from the museum, and the car is Hitler's car, Hitler's automobile. So they're driving around in Hitler's car, and they actually wind up pissing off a bunch of these bikers. And so these bikers start attacking the car, and Randy says lines like, "Are you insane? This is Hitler's car." You're thinking, man, this is just so insane. How how much more crazy can things get? And it just gets crazier, because then after this assault on Hitler's car by these bikers, Randy winds up uh, getting into a bit of an accident where somehow, some way, this lipstick that Eva Braun had in the car winds up on the steering wheel, and the car winds up making an abrupt stop, and Randy goes face first into the steering wheel and has a what looks like a Hitler stash now, and then the cigarette lighter winds up like in his throat, and he gets like it gets his throat is all like burnt up now, and he can barely even speak, and he can't even speak English. I think it's because like his tongue gets burned, so his tongue is all burned. He's got what looks like a Hitler stash, and then Hitler's car winds up crashing a World War II veterans meetup with like World War II vets, and it winds up stumbling onto the stage after the car crashes on stage, and he just starts acting like he's Hitler, just going like, "Ah, no, it's just I am the and oh my god, it is so funny. And of course, the vets are not having any of this, and one of the vets winds up pulling out a gun and starts shooting at Randy. It is hilarious. Everything involving Randy is so funny. Like, even before any of this, like this the whole bit where his daughter has to use the restroom, and she's talking about how she's prairie dog in it, and he's trying to tell her to use a jar, and his wife is like, "Girls don't use jars." It's like, "Oh, okay, a jar and a funnel." And then like, the whole bit later on when the ruse is up because he's been trying to, keep things a secret from his family. It's a race. We're racing. Donald Sinclair put $2 million in a locker, and I want to get there first. I do not want to work at Home Depot. There are some other fun stuff too, like Zach, the medical supply driver, and Enrico, and a lot of the shenanigans that they get involved with, and Enrico, who definitely he's not the brightest bulb, so to speak, but it leads to some really funny bits between him and the medical guy, the guy who was like delivering a heart across country. So you you have bits like this where the driver, he's all talking about how we're really hauling ass, and then he continues on and he's like, you know what we're hauling? Ass. We're hauling ass. Yeah, there's a lot of enjoyable, fun bits all throughout this script with all these different characters. Even with Sinclair's attorney Harold, there's some fun stuff with him in terms of all these different bets that he's involved with all these different millionaires uh, who are also betting on this race. And then you get to the race and how it culminates where oh, it looks like Enrico is going to win, but he falls asleep because he's a narcoleptic. So then everybody is now racing against each other and trying to jam their key into the locker. But uh, Seth Green's character, I believe, he's the one that winds up getting to the locker before everybody else after this like just scramble to get to it. Dwayne, but there's nothing in it because the attorney he made a deal with the hooker that he uh, had a little bit of a fun night with earlier, and they stole the money. So that's a nice little twist there. Car that the attorney is in crashes, and what happens next is something I think a lot of people don't like, but I don't mind it. The money winds up on stage at a Smash Mouth concert because a bunch of shenanigans happen and somehow everybody winds up on stage at this Smash Mouth concert. And it's a charity concert. And so they've got this bag full of money. So Smash Mouth mentions that it's a donation, and all of the different characters wind up donating their money for this charity, much to the chagrin of Sinclair and his billionaire clientele, who are pissed, and especially extra pissed because of the fact that they have to agree to this verbal agreement that they're going to double the donation. Uh, and I think some people don't like the fact that it ends with the Smash Mouth concert. It really makes it something that's very dated firmly in this time period in the early 2000s. And I think some people don't like the fact that, oh, well, they did all of this and it went through all of this crazy stuff and racing against each other and trying to get to this locker, and after all of that they don't get any of the money. uh all they get is like some Smash Mouth tour jackets and get to ride the crowd in after doing a stage dive. But I didn't mind it because in all honesty, it helps the film stand out a little bit more when it comes to these kind of movies about finding the money, where okay, they find the money, but they wind up giving it to a better cause in the end. And their journey wasn't worthless. I mean, they wound up helping a lot of people in the end, and also screwing over Sinclair and his buddies in a way that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So I think that's also the big thing that makes it work for me is that Sinclair winds up getting screwed along with his other millionaire, billionaire clientele who have been betting on these people for the entire story. So yeah, I don't really have that many problems with the script, to be honest. I really don't. I think the tone is warped, but it's consistent. I think it does have some wacky, zany stuff, but it still fits, in my opinion, with the overall story and the tone of everything. I think it does a good job establishing the characters early on and who they are and their different quirks and their different personalities. And I think as a comedy, it's really funny. Whether it's pratfalls, physical comedy stuff, lines of dialogue, and just in insane sequences like the Hitler car sequence. Uh, I genuinely feel that it is a really solid script. The cast in this is fantastic. I mean, you got John Cleese who plays Sinclair, who was honestly the real guy who was the inspiration for Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers. Like Donald Sinclair was the name of the actual owner of that the hotel that inspired that show. So I thought that was fun. And Cleese is always he's always great at playing these kind of roles of these snarky guys who are total slime balls. Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean himself plays Enrico. His comedy can be kind of irritating and tiresome, but it works here because it's in a smaller dose. You have Lanei Chapman and Whoopi Goldberg who play Meryl and Vera, uh, and I think those two definitely worked well together, if you ask me. You have Breckin Meyer and Amy Smart who played Nicholas and Tracy. They had some good chemistry. Uh, they should because they already worked together in Road Trip. You have Cuba Gooding Jr. plays Owen, the referee, and he is definitely hamming it up, but it works better here because it's something that's in a smaller dose. He's not the star of the movie, like it's something like Snow Dogs. You got Seth Green and Vince Vieluf who play Dwayne and Blaine. Vince Vieluf is really funny in this. He's Dwayne's brother who has a tongue piercing that's infected, and you can barely even understand what he's saying. And he's also really quite a lot of fun to watch when it comes to his physical comedy. John Lovitz plays Randy Pear, and he steals every scene that he's in. He really does. It's the kind of role he was born to play. This sneaky, reckless opportunist. This father who's willing to essentially knock his own family out with sleeping pills so he can continue on this rat race to try to get this money. Um, Kathy Najimy played Randy's wife Beverly, and the two played it off each other very well. So did the two kids, Brody Smith as Jason and Jillian Marie Hubert as Kimberly. Dave Thomas from Second City, he plays Harold Sinclair's attorney, who was tragically born without a personality, and it's a fun little role for him. Wayne Knight plays the medical supply driver Zach. Originally, that was a role that was considered to be played by Jason Alexander, but it went to another Seinfeld actor in Wayne Knight instead. I also remember reading something that the characters played by Seth and Vince, Dwayne and Blaine, they were originally intended to be Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, but they declined and, of course, went on to do Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. that year instead. Ironically, though, this movie beat Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in the box office. You have some little cameos by Dean Cain as Tracy's ex, Sean. You got Paul Rodriguez as the taxi driver, Gus. You have Colleen Camp, who is one of the nurses for the Rainbow House. You have Kathy Bates in the uncredited cameo as the squirrel seller. You have Diamond Dallas Page and his wife Kimberly, who played themselves in a deleted cameo, which is featured on the deleted scenes. And apparently was cut out because not enough people in the audience for the test screening knew who Diamond Dallas Page was, which is too bad because that's honestly a pretty fun sequence. So, yeah, really a great cast with a lot of really fun and game performers who are not afraid to let loose, not afraid to be silly. The cinematography is decent for this kind of movie by Thomas E. Ackerman, and so is the editing by Tom Lewis. The music by John Powell is not really the most memorable work, but it works for the movie. And so does the licensed songs that they used for it. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say about Rat Race except thanks for watching my review. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.